Shabbat shalom, everyone.
Shabbat shalom.
Sorry about that.
So I don't know exactly where it cut out, so I will just begin again. It has been a week where I am feeling the pandemic. Some days and weeks I don't even know it's there. I feel it really lightly, and then some days and weeks it kind of hits me up over the head, and this is one of those days and weeks. So I came across this Shabbat reading that really captured how I was feeling and maybe how some of you are feeling as well. Where has this week vanished? Is it lost forever? Will I ever recover anything from it? The joy of life, the unexpected victory, the realized hope, the task accomplished? Will I ever be able to banish the memory of pain, the sting of defeat, the heaviness of boredom? On this day, let me keep for a while what must drift away. On this day, let me be free of the burdens that must return. On this day, Shabbat, abide. Help me to withdraw for a while from the flight of time. Contain the retreat of the hours and days from the grasp of frantic life. Let me learn to pause, if only for this day. Let me find peace on this day. Let me enter into a quiet world this day. On this day, Shabbat, abide. So we move into our warm-up for Shabbat, which begins with Yedid Nefesh.
Just click play. Yedi nefesh avarachaman shochovdecha eretzonecha yarutz ovdach kemo hayah ישתחווה מול הדרה כי ירב לו ידידותה לנופת סוף וחותם
So we move from Yedid Nefesh into Shiru LaAdonai, which is about finding joy. Those weeks and days that I talked about before, when we really feel it, we still have to remember that there is joy to be found. So I hope while we join together and make our way through Kabbalat Shabbat and join in Shiru LaAdonai, that you think about ways that you found joy this week or ways you hope to find joy in the coming week.
שירו לאדוני כל הארץ, שירו לאדוני ברכו שמו, בסרו מיום ליום ישועתו, ספרו בגויים כבודו, בכל העמים נפלאותיו, כי גדול אדוני ומולה מאוד, נורא הוא על כל אלוהים, כי כל אלוהי המים אלילים, ואדוני שמיים עשה, הוד והדר לפניו, עוז ותפארת במקדשו, אבו לאדוני משפחות עמים, אבו לאדוני כבוד ועוז, אבו לאדוני כבוד שמו, שאו מנחה ובואו לחצרותיו,
So in a traditional service, before Lechadodi, there would be 6 psalms leading up to it, which echoed the 6 days of the week. So the thought being that we must go through each day of our week and let go of all of that schmutz before we can fully greet the Sabbath Queen in our final verse, which is the verse that we rise for. So before we sing Lechadodi, I'd like to ask everyone to just pause for a moment, to take a deep breath, and to think back over your week. Think back to last Shabbat, last Sunday and Monday, this past Tuesday and Wednesday and yesterday. If there's a highlight you'd like to share, I'd like to invite you to put it in the community chat, which other people can see and we can see as well. But this is one way we move into Lechadodi, is thinking back over a week, letting go of those things we don't want to hold on to anymore, and moving into Shabbat peace and another week.
Lechadodi lekaskala, b'nei Shabbat nekabela, Lechadodi lekaskala, b'nei Shabbat nekabela. Shamo v'zacho b'diborecha, ishmi'anu el hamiuchad, Adonai echad u'shemo echad, l'shemo tiferet v'litchila. Lecha lecha dodi dodi, lecha dodi likaskala, b'nei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha dodi likaskala, b'nei Shabbat nekabela. Likra Shabbat lechu v'necha, ki makor abrecha, merosh mikerem nesucha, sof ma'aseh b'machshava תחילה. לך דודי דודי, לך דודי לקראת השכלה, בני שבת לקבלה. לך דודי לקראת השכלה, בני שבת נקבלה. התעוררי, התעוררי, כי באור קומי אורי, 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 שתדברי, כבוד אדוני עלייך נגלה. This is kind of the Israeli Here Comes the Bride, Erev Shel Shoshanim. So there's an amazing synagogue in Jerusalem called Sion, run by an amazing rabbi, Rabbi Tamar Elad Applebaum?
I think so.
I think I said her name right. Amazing Sephardi rabbi, conservative rabbi in Jerusalem. And they have adopted the custom at this very last verse of Lecha Dodi, when we're told that somehow the distances between have faded away, that somehow in this moment the duality gives way to the one, that they sing this wedding song, this Israeli wedding song, Erev Shel Shoshanim, for Lecha Dodi, for this cosmic wedding song. Dodi לקראת השכלה, בני שבת נקבלה, בואי ושלום, אדרת בעלה, גם בשמחה וצולה, תוך אמוני עם סגולה, בואי חלה, בואי חלה, לך דודי לקראת השכלה, בני שבת נקבלה.
So we have one final part of Kabbalat Shabbat, which I'd like to introduce with a poem written by Ariel Neshama Lee. Soul Changer. You bring on the evening. You change the light around us. You change the light within us. We hear you whisper gently. This is the sacred time. This is the soul change time. This is the Sabbath, my gift to you.
בכוח גדולת ימינך, תתי צרורה, תתי צרורה, קבל רינת עמך, סגבנו, תרנו, נורא יררה, ים ניררה, yum dee da da da, yeah da 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 da. בכוח גדולת ימינך תתי צרורה קבל רינת עמך סגבנו תרנו נורא יום דידי yum diddy da 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 yiddy da 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 yiddy da da yiddy da da So I'm not sure who has gotten the chance to meet her, to take part, but a dear friend of mine for, I don't know how long, 13 years now, I think. Yeah. Kylan Cohen. She was, I met her, the very first weekend I went to my first student pulpit in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan.
The coldest place I think I've ever been in my whole life.
Yeah. We've got a picture of snowbanks like twice Karen's height.
Yeah.
But I met Kylan that first weekend, and anyhow, she's now a fifth-year HUC student, a rabbinical student, about to become a rabbi, and she is our virtual intern. She's been our shadow the last few weeks. She's been teaching a Hebrew class, and we are lucky to have a teaching from her tonight. So Kylan's
she's gonna light candles.
Light candles, yeah.
Teaching.
So we invite you to go get your candles if you'd like, and
ours.
to light them along with Kylan.
Almost shalom, everyone. This week's Torah portion is a double header. It's Matot and Maseh. The first one, in part, and the latter one are mostly journeys. A lot of we started at point A and ended up at point B. Point B becomes the new point A, and then we repeat. We repeat it a lot. But here, outside of the Torah, we haven't been taking a lot of journeys lately. I haven't left my corner of Brooklyn since March. And yet, here I am, in St. Louis, A to B in an instant, and back again just as quickly. On my candle holder, which I made at camp in Missouri, I've written Shamor v'Zachor b'dibur echad, which you may recognize from the Chadodi. It originally appears in the Midrash Mechilta de Rabbi Ishmael, when we are told that in one utterance God spoke, and yet we heard two words. Those two words were in the same place at the same time, and just as I am, because of our technology, simultaneously celebrating Shabbat in two places this evening. How do we celebrate Shabbat? According to the two versions we have of the Ten Commandments, we guard it in one and we remember it in the other. Isaiah chapter 58 even adds that we should honor and take joy in Shabbat while ignoring our own mundane pursuits. Halachists, such as Rambam, attribute honor and joy with the practice of wearing clean, nicer clothes and having a festive meal. And naturally, we did not want to sit in the cold dark for this meal. So it would have really harshed our joy. So in addition to our favorite grape drink and some challah, we light candles. And because we can't listen to Isaiah while ignoring a prohibition from Exodus, we also then refrain from lighting candles. There are obviously many rules about this kindling and also this refraining. Pages upon pages of rules, thousands of years of fine-tuning the times, the words, the materials we use on Shabbat. There's quite a hierarchy of kindling this flame. Oil was first, fancy oils. In more modern times, we've thankfully switched to Shabbat candles, and I still have no idea where the wax goes as they burn. Sabbath candles, if you can't acquire them, are followed by normal candles. I've definitely been known to use extra Hanukkah candles in a pinch, and fun fact, the blessing for Hanukkah candles came first. But if you have no Hanukkah candles and you have no Shabbat candles, You can even use electric candles, which is what we often use in hospitals and nursing facilities when we can't have open flame. And if you don't have electric candles or normal candles, you can even bless the flipping of a light switch. And if you don't live in New York City and have more than one room, you're recommended to do this in a room you don't often use to make the ordinary a little more extraordinary. So that covers the lighting of. But what about the refraining from? In 2009, as cell phones became smarter and more consuming, and screens seemed to get between us and each other, I still had a track phone because I'm a bit behind on technology. But for others, the Shabbat manifesto started unplugging for Shabbat. For more than a decade, this movement has been challenging folks to turn off and tune in for at least one Shabbat a week. And after staring at screens for grad school semester after semester, I finally listened. For much of this last year, I was phone-free and computer-free for Shabbat. And now, in an ongoing COVID world, I have found it difficult to celebrate Shabbat remotely, often opting to forgo services and make it entirely at home. But last week, in our Tuesday Talmud class here at CRC, allegedly in St. Louis, we were discussing the benefits of connection, whether you can study by yourself, or you need a group of people studying, you need 10 people for prayer. And suddenly, some halakhic thoughts crashed together in my brain as the result of this discussion. And I wondered, if we can make a blessing which activates Shabbat over a light switch, how different could the computer be? If the same thought process that prohibits the light switches after we start Shabbat prohibits computers in the same way, perhaps they too can enter into the category which brings us into holiness. There is no one halakha. There are occasional agreements, trends, but just as many arguments and different opinions, especially as the world changes. Halakha, from a root meaning to walk or go, can be interpreted as way. The way that we maintain and exist in Jewish world. And as the sages of Fleetwood Mac tell us, you can go your own way, even if you're not going anywhere. So this week, we're still going to make the blessings on candles, especially since my computer is already booted up. But this week, I'm definitely doing it knowing that blessing extends to other devices, which help bring holiness and joy to this special day. When I bless these lights, I'm also blessing the lights in this device, which link me to St. Louis, and all of our homes to each other when it's not as safe to be there physically. In this way tonight, we can make two blessings in one utterance. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav, v'tzivanu lehadlik ner, Shabbat. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom, Kylan.
We're glad you're in our virtual St. Louis world.
Oop. And I turned on, hold on everyone, sorry. Let's see. I turned on the speaker so I could hear Kylan, and now I'm hearing myself in echo, and that should solve it. I love Kylan, and I love that beautiful message. And it's certainly one of the things I have resonated with. I feel like I've lost some sense of orientation since COVID began. And I don't know, for the better part of a decade, really more than a decade, I lived a pretty observant, or traditionally observant, Shabbos life where we really weren't using a lot of technology. And, you know, when we left Cincinnati, when we left being in the conservative movement, somehow, I don't know, I miss it more in the COVID era than I ever have, I think.
Interesting.
So I've been thinking about this idea of orientation and this sense of loss of orientation where the days blend into each other and time loses its meaning and space has a new meaning. Because Baruch Hu really is an orientation in the sense that it calls us to turn, right? It's geography, it's Jewish geography, not of the kind of who you know, but of the kind of how you are connected. I've been thinking that Jewish geography, that this orientation moment, this Baruch Hu, it's followed by two ideas of orientation. We orient ourselves with Ma'ariv Aravim, with this sense of looking at our universe on a cosmic scale, of backing away, and somehow, I don't know, Karen, you talked about this has been a hard week for you. I think this is, right? It's getting scary here in Missouri again, always was, maybe, I don't know, but somehow Ma'ariv Aravim, this idea of backing away from our lives, of imagining a cosmic perspective, of seeing the earth as just a tiny pale blue dot in a picture of our solar system. Somehow there's comfort in this sometimes, of remembering that none of this is big, that even ourselves, even our lives somehow fades into the background if we back away far enough. So before we contemplate this smallness, though, before we contemplate this, we call each other to prayer. We call each other to lives of goodness and holiness and meaning. We call each other to orient ourselves where we should always be oriented. So having oriented ourselves, hopefully, having placed ourselves in geography towards each other, no longer imagining that somehow we are by ourselves, right? You would have thought that would have been one of the lessons that all of us would have to learn in this COVID era, but tragically not, I guess. Having oriented ourselves, we back away. We learn to not take ourselves so seriously, to not take any of this so seriously, to let the heavy things become just a little lighter. Roll into dark, roll into light, night becomes day, day turns to night, roll into dark, roll into light. Night becomes day, day turns to night. Yom v'layla, kolelo mipnei choshech, kolelo mipnei choshech, v'choshech mipnei or. Roll into dark, roll into light. Night becomes day, day turns to night. So we don't hold on to that smallness. We don't stay in smallness. The orientation is not just to back away from our lives, but to not walk away until we have found meaning, until we have found purpose. Right? This is the idea of Judaism. It is the idea not that this is some road to an afterlife or to some reward or to something like that. The idea of Torah, the idea of Judaism is that we have a purpose, that we exist with a purpose, that we are a part of this universe because there is brokenness that we are here to fix, that this act of tikkun is why we are here. And so Jewish ethics always begins with v'ahavta l'reacha kamocha, and you shall love your neighbor as yourself. And yet before you can love your neighbor, baked into this is this idea of having love for yourself, is opening ourselves up to the possibility of feeling loved. We are love, 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 by unending love and unending love. We are love, 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 by unending love and unending love. We are embraced by arms that find us, even when we're hidden from ourselves. We are touched by fingers that soothe us, even when we are too proud for soothing. We are counseled by voices that guide us, even when we are too embittered to hear. We are love, 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 by unending love and unending love. We are supported by hands that uplift us, even in the midst of a fall. We are urged on by eyes that meet us, even when we are too weak for meaning. We are loved, love, love, by unending love and unending love. We are loved, love, love, by unending love and unending love. Embrace, touch, soothe, and counsel. Ours are the arms, the fingers, the voices. Ours are the hands, the eyes, the smiles. We are loved by an unending love.
Baruch atah Adonai Ohev Amal Yisrael. Blessed are you, holy present in our universe, who loves all your people and all your creations. Amen. So we move into the Shema. And when we talk about the word Shema, We associate it with our ears, and we associate it with to hear. But hearing is not listening. Hearing is automatic. Listening, on the other hand, is understanding the words of the speaker and paying attention. To listen that intently, we have to still the mind and body so that we're not distracted, which is kind of hard to do in my house, but we have to at least try. Our hearing should be so focused, so intense, and so deep that we are no longer aware of ourselves as a separate person doing the listening. To listen and to love. Listeners need to move what they have heard, what we have heard, with our ears and what we understand with our minds, and we have to move it into our hearts. This is the kind of listening that the Shema encourages and requires. So as we cover our eyes, we think about how we are all a part of one community, one humanity, and we listen and we move it into our hearts.
Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad. 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 Adonai Echad. So there's a meditation built into our prayers, or what we think of as our prayers. We've actually been looking at this on Tuesdays in Talmud in the COVID era. We've been looking at the Shema. And we think of the Shema as this line that we just said. But for the rabbis of the Talmud, the Shema is this meditation. It's this expanded creation. It's these 3 paragraphs that follow those words that we just said. And it begins with V'ahavta. V'ahavta, which speaks of when we go out and when we come home, and binding this as a sign upon our heads and upon our hearts and on our gates. It's this idea of Judaism, I think, that if we do it right, if we do mitzvah right, then what it's there for is to ritualize us into ethical lives. It's to ritualize us into being the people that we always should have been and always should be. And so when we say V'ahavta, we recommit ourselves to this. We recommit to living the best of ourselves, to living the best of our values when we are at home and when we are on Zoom.
We're not on our way anymore.
Right? No, when we are on our way, even more so. And when we go out, right? Even more so, that we live the best of our values when we cross the boundaries into the public world. And with the people that we love. And when we wake up and when we lie down and all the times in between. I know I've been thinking about this, how easy it is as a dad. I've been feeling it really, to let the day just disappear and feel like I just parented by inertia. And I feel like in this crazy COVID era, I can let a week go by and feel that way. And so it's a reminder with V'ahavta to bring this intentionality, to be living these values on purpose at every moment of every day. So I invite you to reflect on this in our own lives and to chant with us together. V'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha b'chol levavcha u'b'chol nafshecha u'b'chol meodecha v'hayu hadvarim ha'eleh asher anochi metzavecha hayom al levavecha v'shinantam levanecha v'dibarta bam b'shivtecha b'veitecha uvlechtecha v'derech uv'shochbecha uv'kumecha וקשרתם לאות על ידיך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך, ובישעריך, למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי, והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם לאלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אדוני אלוהיכם, אמת. Like the great unspoken order of America is the order of class, right? We pretend like we don't have these class distinctions, and yet I think, particularly in this COVID era, it is clearer more than ever the way that class divides us and divides the opportunities that we have and the futures that we have and the lives that we have and the health that we have. The way that intersects with race, and a particularly American toxicity. But I've been thinking about class because essential workers is this category in COVID, right? It's this category that makes it sound like we're talking about people who are revered in our society, and yet so often the people who are being deemed as essential workers, the people who it's essential that their lives be put at risk, is what it seems to mean, are the folks in our community who are paid the least, who are disproportionately poor, who are disproportionately people of color, right? Essential workers. Meanwhile, the class distinction is so clear by those of us lucky enough, and I count myself amongst this lucky few, to be able to be at home, to be able to work at home, to be able to live my life in relative safety and security in the craziness of this era. And I think this is why we say Mi Chamocha. Because wherever we find ourselves, the odds are that in some profound ways, if we're taking part in this, we're part of the lucky ones. In some way or another, we're part of the lucky ones. I think it's why we say Mi Chamocha before we say the Amidah, before we enter into the prayer. Because we have to be reminded that if we're here, if we can gather together to pray, if we can use our lips to say these words, to sing these melodies, then somehow we are the lucky ones, and we have to remember what it was like to be those who were not so lucky. Because it's dangerous, I think, if we say our prayers, if we say the Amidah, if we say our political moments about the gap between the world as it is and the world as it should be, without stopping to remember that we too were strangers in a strange land. That no matter where we find ourselves now, no matter how lucky or unlucky we are, that we have been strangers in the land of Egypt, we have been strangers in the land of Babylon, we have been strangers in the land of Germany and Spain, and we have been strangers in the land of America. Yeah. Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu Lishalom V'hamidenu Somrenu Lechaim Ufros Aleinu Sukat Shlomecha Ufros Aleinu Sukat Shlomecha Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu Lishalom V'hamidenu Shomreinu Lechaim Ufros Aleinu Sukat Shlomecha Ufros Aleinu Sukat Shlomecha In another lifetime, wanna toil in blood. When darkness was a virtue and the road was full of mud. Came in from the wilderness, a creature void of form. Come in, she said, I'll give you shelter from the storm. Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu Lishalom V'hamidenu Somreinu Lechaim Ufros Aleinu Sukat Shlomecha Ufros Aleinu Sukat Shlomecha.
That's beautiful. So, before the Amidah, we're moving into the Amidah. Sorry, let me get reorganized. Nope, it's on you. That one's yours. So we move into the Amidah. I really need this. I thought a lot about how much I needed Shabbat tonight. And I was really needing it before this started, and that Hashkivenu just kind of let some of that tension go and some of that anxiety. And as we move into the Amidah, I'm hoping that we all can let go of some more of that tension and really focus our thoughts on these prayers and on the words in our hearts and the things that we're thinking of that maybe we don't want to say out loud. So we will join together for the beginning. And then there will be some time for us to really concentrate and contemplate the prayers of our hearts.
Adonai Siftai Tiftach Ufi Yagid Tehilatecha Havaya Siftai Tiftach Ufi Yagid Tehilatecha Tiftach Ufi Yagid Tehilatecha Adonai, prepare me to be a sanctuary, pure and holy, tried and true, with thanksgiving will be a living sanctuary for you. Havaya Sifatai Tiftach Ufi Yagid Tehilatecha Adonai. אתה תפתח ופי יגיד תהילתך. ברוך אתה אדוני Eloheinu ve'Elohei avot. Damn it.
What happened?
I hit this and it popped out. Maybe we're back? We're back. I think we just lost you for a second. Sorry about that, everyone.
Let's start again.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu ve'Elohei avotenu v'imotenu Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak, ve'Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Leah, ve'Elohei Rachel, Elohei Zilpa, ve'Elohei Bilha, Ha'el Hagadol Hagibor v'Hanora, El Elyon, Koneh Shamayim va'aretz.
So we will pause for just a few moments for the prayers of your heart.
Say shalom bimroma, Yaseh shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'al kol yoshvei tevel, v'imru. Amen. Oseh shalom bimroma, Yaseh shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'al kol yoshvei tevel, v'imru. And so we invite Rabbi Kylan, our fifth year HUC rabbinical student.
Who lit candles for us.
Who lit candles for us. And I'm sorry if the internet cut out. And I'm sorry if you're hearing that. It's raining pretty hard out here. And
really windy.
Yeah. And I'm sorry if you heard my rather French language while the internet cut out over here. I'm hoping it cut out for that. But we invite Rabbi Kylan to take a moment to recenter us, to refocus us on what matters, on our prayers for healing, on directing our energies and our hearts towards all of the healing that is needed in this world. So, Kylan.
We need healing in this world on a normal day. For the injuries and illnesses and hurts which can take us from our way for a short time, or as we find ourselves for an ongoing time. In the Mi Sheberach for healing, we call out to each other, to a higher power, to whatever and whomever we can, that those who need it will feel more whole as they once did, or as whole as they can be. Feel free to share names with the community in the chat as I read out names. Tonight we're praying for Finn Naylor, Fred of Deb Monfort, Art Silverblatt, Wanda Stutz-Rhine, cousin of Kathy Davenport, Debbie Dwyer, a dear friend of Sarah Keller and Howie Livicki, Meredith Pritchett, one of Kathy Davenport's high school classmates, daughter of one of Kathy Davenport's high school classmates, Elaine Thornton, cousin of Kathy Davenport, Rick Hack, Gil Rock, friend of Leslie Kaplan, Huey Powell, Specialist Evan Richards, who's deployed in Iraq, Morris Tamsky, Kerry Schulman, brother of Deb Monafort, Caroline Harvath, a dear friend of Marcy Brodsky, Susan Schroeder, daughter-in-law of Davida Murphy-Smith, Ron Fagerstrom, and Colby Trotter.
So we fill our hearts with blessing. We fill our hearts with prayers. Baruch Atah Adonai, Rofeh HaCholim. May the source
Amen.
of healing bring healing to all of those in our world who need it. Certainly physical healing, but yeah.
Mm-hmm. All kind of healing is needed these days.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we move into our concluding blessings, which begin with Aleinu, which means it is literally upon us. Aleinu means it is upon us to bring about the kind of world that we want to live in.
Aleinu l'shabeach l'adon hakol, la'tekiru la'liotzer breshit, shelo asanu kigoye haratzot, velo samanu k'mishpachot ha'adama, shelo sam chelkenu kahem, v'gor aleinu k'cho hamonam, v'anachnu korim umishtachavim umodim lifnei melech malchei hamlachim hakadosh baruch hu shehu noteh shamayim veyoser haaretz umoshev yikaro bashamayim ima'al ushchinatu zo begove meromim Hu Eloheinu ein od emet malkeinu evesulato kakatu betorato v'yatata yom v'hashevota elevovecha ki Adonai hu Elohim bashamayim ima'al V'al haaretz mitachat ein od v'ne'emar v'haya Adonai l'melech al kol haaretz v'yom hahu yeh Adonai echad u'shemo echad. So, online services, they're not the same, right? I think everyone who's watching right now, right, rather than here together, gets that. Which isn't to take away from them, which isn't to say that it hasn't been an incredible way to connect with people, and that there hasn't been a heroic effort on the part of CRC's staff to make this happen. But I think there's no moment that feels as distant as the mourner's Kaddish. And it really stands out because it's not the prayer for those who have gone, right? We think of it as the prayer for those who have gone. We think of it as the prayer that we say for those that we miss, for those that we have lost. And yet the reality is the mourner's Kaddish is the Kaddish said by mourners. It is the wording. It is the moment. It is this ritualized moment at the end of a service. If you've ever been to an Orthodox community where services feel like they're done, and then all of a sudden the mourners start chanting the Kaddish, not all together, not coordinated, not with the rabbi, just sort of each person in their corner, wherever they are, saying Kaddish, with everyone else responding to them. And it's so clear in those moments who the mourners are, just like it is so clear when we are at CRC and when folks stand up and when we see you. And when we see the faces of those we are here to support, of those we are thinking of those who are in mourning. And so it's not the same. It's not the same when we can't see each other, and yet please know that your CRC family sees you, and we feel you, and we are sending love, particularly at these moments.
Can I read names?
Yeah, that'd be great.
So, in the past...
And please share, if you've got people you're thinking of, please share them in the chat so we'll
read them at the end.
See those names too.
So in the past, just over a month, starting with June, we remembered Jan Nelson, Charlotte Futterman, Norman Roth, Kent Huffman, Sidney Feiner, Jerome Schneider, and Gary Krugman. And for yard sites this week, we remember Rosalie Krojanker, Shirley Ragsdale, Annabelle Rosenblum, Julie Levy, Shirley Ashraf, David Yaffe, Dorothy Drury, Len Garland, Ronald Stone, Erica Vygotsky, David Martin, Samuel Rosenthal, Evelyn Holtzman, Zelda Jacobs, Melba Powell, Marvin H. Sachs, Gerald Cohen, Bernard A. Edelstein, Merle Goldstein, Irene Klein, Jane McCrae, Rose Telsner, and Ellen Wallach.
And Myra's sharing James Adams to this list. Steve Arkless. Please God, Ruth Bader Ginsburg was shared for the Misha Berach list. Yeah. And Michelle Barrier for Misha Berach. Hey, Paul, your mom, Myra fell. We're sending her a refuah shlema.
Okay.
So for all of those that we miss, all of those that we mourn, all of those emptinesses that we feel in our heart every day.
One more, Dr. Ed Weiner, from Stacy Kramer.
Oh, from Memphis.
Yeah, I saw that.
From Memphis. And so we say Kaddish.
Yid Gadal,
V'yid Kadash, Shemei Rabbah, Be'alma Divrach Chrute V'yamlich Malchute, B'chayechon Uvyomechon, Uvchaye Dechol Beit Yisrael, Ba'gala Uvizman Kariv V'imru. Amen. Yehei Shmei Rabbah Mevorach Le'olam Olmei Almaya. Yitbarach V'yishtabach V'yitpa'ar V'yitromam V'yitnaseh. V'yitadar, v'yitaleh, v'yitalal, Shemei d'Kudusha b'richu, Le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, Tushbechata v'nechemata, Damiran be'alma v'imru. Amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shemaya, V'chaim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael, v'imru. Amen. Aseh shalom b'mromav, Huya aseh shalom, aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael, Ve'al kol yoshvei tevel, v'imru. Amen. Zichronam livracha, may the memories of all of those that we miss, all of those that we mourn for, be a blessing in our lives.
Amen. Do you have any announcements? University series will be back in August. High holidays are coming.
High holidays are coming. There will be announcements coming out about the high holidays if you haven't heard yet.
Rabbi Jim and Rabbi Susan Salon is still on Thursday nights. And that might be it.
So we will close with Adonalam. Hashem Allah Terem kol yitzir nivra Li'enasa v'chev sokom אזי מלך שמו נקרא שמו נקרא אחרי ככלו רקו לבדו ימלוך נורא והוא